There is a place that no one can see, a silent chamber, hidden not in the mountains, but behind the noise of your own mind. The old masters called it the Inner Dojo, the sacred ground where the true battle of a warrior is fought, not against enemies, not against time, but against distraction, weakness, and fear. Each dawn, a man awakens within you, one who remembers his path, one who sharpens his mind like a blade while the world scrolls endlessly into oblivion. In this dojo, pain becomes teacher, silence becomes ally, discipline becomes the sword that cuts through chaos. You don't train here for trophies, you train for truth, because strength that comes from the outside fades, but strength that is forged within becomes eternal. This is the story of one man who entered his inner dojo and emerged transformed, a journey of stillness, war, and rebirth. A path that asks only one thing: enter the dojo or remain a prisoner of the mind. Chapter 1. The noise of 1,000 voices. In every man's life, there comes a moment when the noise becomes unbearable. Not the noise of traffic, nor the hum of machines, but the inner noise that corrodes clarity and devours time. He sat in his small apartment, surrounded by glowing screens, messages blinking, feeds scrolling, music humming through cheap speakers. His body was still, but his mind was being torn in 1,000 directions. He moved from one distraction to another, as if escaping an invisible predator. Yet what hunted him was not outside. It lived in his chest, a restlessness that no achievement could silence. Hours blurred into days. Notifications became narcotics. His will, once sharp, dulled by invisible chains, likes, opinions, expectations. Every moment demanded attention, and in giving it away, he lost himself. At night, when the screens dimmed and silence returned, the truth would creep back. He would stare at the ceiling and feel it, that quiet ache of unrealized strength, the sense that something ancient inside him was dying, or perhaps waiting. He remembered his grandfather, an austere man of few words, a soldier, a craftsman, a keeper of unspoken wisdom. When he was a boy, he once asked him, "Grandfather, how do I stop being afraid?" The old man replied, "When the mind shatters, return to the dojo within." At the time, it meant nothing, but tonight, it echoed like thunder. The man rose, pacing across his room. He felt the weight of his wasted years, the countless plans never finished, books unopened, mornings slept through. A whisper began forming in his mind. "You are dying a slow death of distraction." He turned off his phone. The silence hit like a wave. For the first time, he could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of the clock. His breathing felt foreign, mechanical. The mind panicked. It craved stimulation, noise, escape, anything. But he refused to move. He sat in the darkness, facing the storm within. Minutes stretched. Then something cracked, not loudly, but like the soft fracture of ice melting. Beneath the restlessness, a space appeared, empty, unfamiliar, terrifying. He realized the truth. He had never actually been alone, not truly. His life had been a continuous conversation with noise, with the world's voices, opinions, fears. Now, stripped of them, he was face to face with himself. And he didn't know this person. He whispered, "Who are you without distraction?" The silence answered nothing. That night, he made a vow, written not on paper, but within his own pulse. He would withdraw from the world, not as an escape, but as an act of war. He packed a small bag, left his apartment, and drove toward the mountains. No music, no GPS voice, just the rhythm of the tires and the distant dawn. When he reached the edge of an old forest, he parked the car and stepped into the stillness. The air was cold. The earth smelled ancient, as if it remembered things men had long forgotten. He walked until the sound of civilization vanished behind him. Then he stopped. For the first time in years, he felt something like reverence, the kind of quiet that makes you realize how loud your thoughts have been. He closed his eyes. In that darkness, he saw the faint image of his grandfather, the same stern gaze, the same calm presence, and the voice returned, deep, patient, eternal. When the mind shatters, return to the dojo within. He opened his eyes. The forest breathed with him. The training had begun. Chapter 1, Part 2. The forest became his monastery. A cabin, small, wooden, forgotten by time, waited like a relic from another life. Inside, there was nothing but a mat, a kettle, and an empty journal. He unpacked in silence, every movement deliberate, stripped of hurry. He knew nothing of meditation or ritual. Yet, instinct told him, begin by clearing what you no longer need. He turned off his phone. Not just airplane mode. Power off. The screen went black, and for a moment, he felt an absurd grief, as if saying farewell to an old friend. But then came a strange calm. He placed it in a drawer, closed it, and whispered, "I'm free." Outside, the wind whispered through pines like a language older than words. Inside, the mind screamed. The first hours were brutal. Thoughts collided like waves. What am I doing here? I'm wasting time. I should go back. The ego fought for control, summoning excuses, hunger, boredom, restlessness. But the man stayed seated on the floor, watching the thoughts as if they were clouds. The body twitched. The spine ached. The mind rebelled. Every instinct begged to escape, but somewhere beneath the noise, he sensed something watching. Not a person, a presence, silent, patient, unmoved. When the inner chaos reached its peak, he remembered his grandfather's words again, return to the dojo within. And he understood, this was the dojo, not a hall of swords and scrolls, but this storm of thoughts, the place where warriors face themselves. He wrote in his journal, Day 1, I am addicted to noise. Silence burns. Night fell early. He lit a single candle. Its flame trembled in rhythm with his breath. Outside, a chorus of insects sang their simple, eternal song. He sat again. No mantras, no techniques, just stillness. At first, he could hear every sound. The crackling wood, the wind brushing against the walls, the faint drumming of his heartbeat. But slowly, all these sounds merged into one, the sound of now. Then came the memories, forgotten regrets, small betrayals, wasted chances. They surfaced like ghosts, demanding recognition. He wanted to push them away, but something inside said, watch them, don't fight. He did. And for the first time, the pain didn't consume him. It transformed. Beneath each regret, there was a lesson. Beneath each failure, a seed of strength waiting to grow. He realized how long he had been chasing external victories, money, status, validation, while neglecting the simplest and hardest victory, to be fully present. He wrote again, Day 2, the mind is a battlefield disguised as comfort. By the third day, his breathing had deepened. Thoughts still came, but they no longer owned him. He could see them arrive and leave, like travelers passing through a silent gate. In stillness, time lost shape. Moments stretched like eternity, then dissolved into seconds. Yet, somewhere between the two, he felt something stir. A pulse of awareness that didn't think, didn't plan, didn't fear. That was the first glimpse of strength. Not the kind that conquers, but the kind that endures. He smiled faintly, not from pride, but recognition. The mind was clearing, the fog was lifting, and beneath the chaos, the warrior was waking. The candle burned low, and as its final light flickered out, he whispered into the dark, "I have entered the dojo." Outside, the first light of dawn brushed the horizon, a thin blade of gold slicing through the night. Tomorrow the master would come. Chapter 2. The Master of Stillness. Dawn arrived like a whisper. The forest was veiled in mist, pale blue, breathless, eternal. The man stepped outside the cabin barefoot, his breath forming ghosts in the morning chill. The world was silent, yet alive, the kind of silence that listens back. He poured water into a small iron kettle and set it on the fire. The crackle of flame was the only sound. As he watched the water tremble and steam, a single thought crossed his mind. This is training. Every movement had begun to feel like a ritual. The way he placed the kettle, folded his mat, even the act of walking. The stillness he had feared was slowly becoming a companion. But deep down, he sensed he was not alone. That morning, as he sat to meditate, he felt a presence, vast, grounded, and ancient. It wasn't a voice exactly, it was a vibration, a pulse echoing through the silence. Then, like a shadow forming from light, a figure appeared before him. An old man draped in simple robes, his posture upright, his eyes unmoving. The air seemed to bend around him, as if the forest itself bowed in respect. The man didn't speak. He simply looked. That gaze carried no judgment, no pity, only an unbearable clarity, as if it could see every lie you've ever told yourself. Finally, the elder's lips parted. "You have come to train." The younger man nodded, hesitant. "Yes, master. But I don't know what to do." The elder smiled faintly. "That is the first lesson. You do not do. You see." He motioned for him to sit. The two faced each other in silence. Minutes passed. Then the elder spoke again. "Before a man moves, he must first become still. Before he acts, he must first return to nothing." The student frowned. "But how can I be still when my thoughts never stop?" The master's voice was calm, almost tender. "The river does not stop flowing, but you can learn to stand on the shore." He taught him the first discipline, the discipline of the breath. "Each breath is a sword stroke," the master said. "When you breathe without awareness, your blade dulls. When you breathe with full attention, you sharpen the edge of your presence." They sat together in silence, inhaling and exhaling. The man's chest rose and fell with deliberate rhythm. At first, his mind rebelled, seeking distraction, thoughts darting like insects. But the master's voice returned, steady as a heartbeat. "When the mind wanders, return to the breath. Always return." Hours passed unnoticed. Then something shifted. His breathing slowed until it merged with the sound of the forest. His thoughts softened, no longer shouting, just drifting quietly through his awareness. For the first time, he wasn't drowning in his mind. He was watching it. The master spoke again, eyes still closed. "You see now. The warrior's first weapon is not the sword. It is attention. Without attention, even the strongest man is blind." The lesson sank deep. The man felt his pulse steady, his senses sharpen. Even the faint hum of insects felt like a symphony. He realized how much of life he had missed, how many mornings he had scrolled past, how many meals he had eaten without tasting, how many sunsets had come and gone unnoticed. Presence was not a philosophy. It was a blade. The master opened his eyes. Tomorrow, the real training begins. The battle is not against the world, but against the storm inside. The man bowed, whispering, "Yes, master." And in the silence that followed, he could almost hear the sound of his old life dissolving into dust. Chapter 2, Part 2. The days that followed unfolded like pages of an ancient scroll. Simple, repetitive, but charged with invisible meaning. Each morning began before sunrise. No alarm, no urgency. Only the whisper of the wind through the trees and the steady rhythm of his own breath. He would sit for hours facing east, eyes half open, the rising sun painting his face in gold. The master was always there, silent, unmoving, like a stone carved by centuries of patience. There were no lectures, no words of comfort, only the occasional instruction, delivered like a blade. Sit, observe, return to breath. At first, the man mistook stillness for idleness. His body ached, his knees screamed, his mind swarmed with thoughts, plans, regrets, memories, temptations. The silence magnified everything. He wanted to move, to stretch, to do something. The master sensed it. Without opening his eyes, he spoke. You seek to act before understanding. This is why your strength has always scattered. You move without presence. He continued, his tone soft yet absolute. Stillness is not the absence of motion. It is the discipline of being fully where you are. The man clenched his fists, frustrated. But I can't stop my thoughts. The master turned his head slightly, eyes sharp as blades. Then don't. You are not here to stop them. You are here to see them. He stood, walking slowly toward a shallow pond near the cabin. The water was still as glass. He motioned for the man to look. This pond, he said, is your mind. When disturbed, it reflects nothing. When calm, it mirrors the world with perfect clarity. The man watched his reflection ripple, then fade. So how do I calm it? The master dipped his finger into the water, creating a single wave. By not trying to. The paradox landed like a riddle from heaven. That night, he practiced in the dark, seated before the faint glow of a dying candle. The insects sang their hymns of eternity. He breathed. Thoughts came. Thoughts went. He did not chase them, did not flee them. He simply watched. Hours passed unnoticed. Then something subtle shifted. The boundary between himself and his surroundings dissolved. The room, the flame, the breath, all were one. Time had no meaning here. In that stillness, an insight rose uninvited. Presence is not created by effort. It is revealed when effort ends. When morning arrived, the master found him still seated. A faint smile crossed the old man's face. Now you begin to understand, he said. Stillness is not a task. It is your natural state, buried beneath movement. The man bowed his head. It feels peaceful. Peace, said the master, is not the goal. It is the byproduct of awareness. Do not chase calmness. Chase nothing. Watch everything. From that day, the training expanded beyond meditation. The master gave him tasks, chopping wood, carrying water, sweeping the floors, each one to be done without thought of completion. At first, he found it absurd, but soon he realized every task became a mirror. The moment his attention drifted, mistakes appeared, spilled water, uneven cuts, broken rhythm. The master would simply say, "You were not here." He began again and again, until one morning, without noticing, the wood split perfectly. No tension, no thought, no ego, just presence. The master nodded once, his gaze steady. "Now," he said quietly, "you are ready to face the shadow." The air grew heavier, the forest fell silent. The man felt it, something deep within, beginning to stir. When the mind becomes still, the darkness it once buried begins to awaken. Chapter 3. The Battle with the Shadow. Night fell like ink spilling across the sky. The forest, once peaceful, now breathed differently, heavier, colder, almost watchful. The man sat inside the cabin, the faint glow of the fire painting restless shadows on the walls. He could feel it, a stirring deep within, something old, unhealed, moving beneath the silence he had built. The master's words echoed through the room. When the mind becomes still, the darkness it once buried begins to awaken. At first, he thought it was fear, but it was deeper, a kind of pressure rising from the depths of memory. The mind that once scattered like dust now began to show its true form. He closed his eyes and breathed. The stillness he had cultivated was supposed to bring peace, but peace was gone. In its place came whispers, his own voice, distorted and multiplied. You'll fail again. You were never meant for greatness. You don't have what it takes. Each voice carried a different tone, some cruel, some tired, some eerily calm. He tried to ignore them, but the more he resisted, the louder they grew. The master's voice returned, distant yet clear. Do not fight the voices. Let them speak. Observe their faces. So he did. He breathed slowly, and within the darkness of his mind, forms began to emerge, figures sculpted from emotion and memory. The first was fear, tall, faceless, cloaked in mist. Its voice trembled but persistent. You will lose everything if you keep going. Go back to comfort. Return to the noise. Then came laziness, soft, smiling, seductive. It draped an arm around his shoulder. You've done enough. Rest now. You deserve it. Finally, ego appeared, proud, confident, wearing his own face. You've already changed. You're better than others now. Why keep suffering? They circled him like predators around a fire. Each word, each whisper pulled at the seams of his discipline. He wanted to shout, to make them vanish. But another part of him, the part that had been trained by stillness, whispered, watch. He remembered the pond, the reflection disturbed by movement. If he fought, he would only stir the water again. So he watched. Fear hissed, laziness mocked, ego smirked. But he did not respond. He simply breathed. Slowly, their words began to lose weight. Their voices faltered, as if feeding on his reaction. And starving. Then something unexpected happened. The shadows began to dissolve into light, revealing not demons, but fragments of himself. The same energy he once feared was now being returned, purified through awareness. Tears filled his eyes, not from pain, but recognition. These shadows had never been his enemies. They were the broken parts of him that had waited to be seen. The enemy is not outside, he whispered. He wears my face. The forest crooned outside. A wind rattled the cabin's walls. The fire flickered low, throwing long trembling shapes across the floor. Then came the final whisper, the one he knew too well. The voice of doubt. It was quieter than the rest, yet far more dangerous. You think you're changing, but this will not last. For a moment, he almost believed it. The silence within cracked, but from somewhere deep inside, the master's voice arose again, steady as stone. The path reveals itself only to those who refuse to turn away. He inhaled sharply. The voice of doubt faded into the wind. The man straightened his spine. His mind was bruised, but unbroken. He opened his eyes to the dying firelight, whispering, I will not turn away. The first battle had been fought, and the war within had only just begun. Chapter 3, Part 2. The next night came without stars. The forest lay under a blanket of blackness, and the cabin felt smaller, like a cell carved out of his own mind. Sleep had deserted him. The confrontation with his shadows had opened wounds he hadn't known existed. Memories he thought were long buried rose like ghosts from the soil. Faces, failures, betrayals, promises broken not to others, but to himself. He sat on the cold floor, trembling, his breath uneven. For every ounce of stillness he had gained, the darkness seemed to rise twice as strong. The silence that had once comforted him now felt suffocating. He whispered, "Master, where are you?" No answer, only the steady groan of wind through the trees. He stood and paced. The mind began its assault again, this time not as fear or laziness, but as reason. What's the point of this? You're just sitting in the woods doing nothing. You could have been someone by now. He slammed his fist against the table. Enough. The shout echoed off the walls, then died, swallowed by the dark. He fell to his knees, panting. The silence mocked him. And then, from within the shadows, it appeared. Not fear, not laziness, not doubt. This one had eyes that burned with intelligence. It smiled, a smile he recognized instantly. It was himself, but stronger, sharper, confident. The version of him who had everything under control. The voice was calm, steady, seductive. You've come far. You've conquered fear. You've silenced distraction. You've done what others can't. You don't need this old master anymore. The man froze. Who are you? The figure tilted its head. I am who you were meant to be. The awakened one. The warrior reborn. You've already won, ego had returned. Not in arrogance this time, but in disguise. Take pride, it whispered. You've reached enlightenment. You deserve peace. You are above this suffering now. The words felt true, sweet, seductive. He stood taller, breathing deep, his chest swelling with subtle pride. Maybe it was true. Maybe he had reached the summit. Maybe he didn't need guidance anymore. But then, in the faint reflection of the window, he saw his eyes. Cold, sharp, detached. There was no humility there, no warmth, only self-admiration. The reflection spoke before he could. The moment you think you've won, you've already lost. The words didn't come from him. They came from the doorway. The master stood there, silent, still as a tree. His presence filled the cabin like wind returning to a suffocating room. The man turned, ashamed. Master, I thought. Yes, the master interrupted softly. You thought. And that is where the shadow hides. Now he stepped closer, his gaze cutting through the illusion. Ego is the cleverest enemy. It does not attack. It praises. It tells you that you are free, so that you stop walking. The man dropped to his knees. The illusion shattered. The confident reflection dissolved like smoke. Tears streamed down his face. I wanted to be free. The master placed a hand on his shoulder. Freedom begins where the self ends. They sat in silence. The fire crackled. The weight in his chest began to lift. The master spoke once more, voice low but firm. You have met your shadow and survived. You are ready for the next path, the ruthless one. The man wiped his tears, eyes calm again. I understand now. The enemy wears my face. The master nodded. Good. Then let that face die. Outside, thunder rolled across the valley. Not a storm of destruction, but a cleansing one. The inner war was not over, but for the first time, the warrior had drawn blood from his greatest foe, himself. Chapter 4. The Ruthless Path. When dawn came, it was not gentle. The sun cut through the fog like a blade through silk, harsh, golden, merciless. The man rose before the first bird stirred. The master was already outside, seated upon a stone facing the valley. His eyes were closed, his breath calm, as if he were carved from the morning itself. Today, the master said, without opening his eyes, you begin the ruthless path. The man bowed. Ruthless? Against what? Against hesitation, against comfort, against the part of you that still negotiates with weakness. The words hit deep. The man thought of all the moments he had chosen the easy path, the snooze button, the half effort, the distraction disguised as rest. The master stood, his robe brushing the earth. Discipline, he said, is not punishment. It is precision, the alignment of thought and action, until they become one motion. The days that followed were stripped of softness. Every morning began before the sun. Cold water, silence, training, breath, repeat. There was no motivation, only motion. The master spoke little, his presence alone, forcing the man into accountability. One morning, the man asked, "Why must discipline be so merciless?" The master looked up from his seated posture. "Merciless," he smiled faintly. "You call it merciless because it kills the parts of you that never truly lived." The man stared into the distance. "But it hurts." "Of course it hurts," said the master. "So does birth. So does truth. The question is not whether you hurt, but whether you heal correctly." He continued, "Comfort is the most beautiful cage ever built. You will never know you are imprisoned until you've lived outside it." And so the man obeyed. He ate only what he needed, no more, no less. He spoke only when words served purpose. He trained until his body trembled, then breathed until the trembling passed. Slowly, a transformation began, not loud or dramatic, but quiet and certain. The way he walked changed, his gaze steadied, his heartbeat seemed slower, heavier, deliberate. Each movement became ritual. When he chopped wood, he did so as if performing sacred ceremony. When he washed his bowl, it was as though he were polishing the sword of his spirit. One night, as the moonlight bathed the cabin, he realized something profound. He was no longer training to become something. He was simply being. The master noticed the change. "You see now," he said, "discipline is not about control. It is devotion. Every act done with awareness is a prayer." The man nodded. "Then, what makes it ruthless?" The master's eyes gleamed. "Because it demands everything. Half measures are betrayal. To walk this path, you must cut away every excuse, every comfort, every false identity. The sword of discipline must first strike the self." The next morning, the man woke before dawn without being told. He went outside, feeling the chill of the air slice through his lungs like truth through illusion. He bowed to the rising sun, not as ritual, but as recognition. "I am ready," he whispered, "to live without compromise." From that moment, his training took on a new rhythm. There were no longer days of practice and days of rest. Every breath became training, every silence a lesson, every discomfort a chance to polish his soul. He began to understand what the master meant by ruthless clarity. It wasn't about aggression, it was about honesty, so sharp it left no room for weakness to hide. Chapter 4, Part 2. The man's days became a symphony of precision. He woke with the sun, breathed with the wind, and moved as if every motion were an offering to the unseen. His body hardened, his mind sharpened, his spirit, once tangled in noise, now flowed with the stillness of steel. He no longer sought the master's praise. The need for approval had dissolved like fog under morning light, and yet, in the quiet corners of his mind, something whispered, a subtle satisfaction, a voice that said, "Look how far you've come." He dismissed it at first, mistaking it for confidence. But in the dojo of silence, even whispers grow loud. The master watched without speaking. He could see the man's form becoming perfect, but his eyes, losing humility. One afternoon, as the man completed his final kata beneath a blood-orange sky, the master spoke. You have become disciplined, yes. But do not mistake obedience for understanding. You have polished the sword. Now learn not to cut yourself with it. The man bowed, though pride coiled within him like a hidden serpent. He had conquered his weakness, his laziness, his distractions. Was he not strong? Was he not becoming the warrior the master envisioned? That night, the master gave him a new challenge, one without movement, without form. You will sit, he said, from sunset until sunrise. No water, no fire, no mantra, only watch what stirs within. The man obeyed. Hours passed. The forest sang its nocturnal hymn, insects, wind, the creak of wood. At first, his mind was calm, fortified by months of discipline. But then came the fatigue, the cold, the voices. Old thoughts rose again. Like ghosts he thought he'd buried. You've done enough. You've already proven yourself. Sleep. What's the point of all this? You're stronger than most. The man clenched his fists, anger burning beneath his skin. He realized that the true enemy never dies. It only waits for your guard to drop. By midnight, his body screamed for warmth. His mind demanded escape. But the master's voice echoed through memory. Discipline is love, the love of who you could become if you refuse to break. So, he stayed. Each hour was a battle, each breath a blade against temptation. As dawn approached, he felt something shift. Not triumph, not pride, but surrender. He realized that the path was never about becoming invincible. It was about becoming transparent. To let truth pass through you like light through clean glass. When the first sunbeam touched his face, he opened his eyes and whispered, I understand now. Ruthlessness is not cruelty. It is purity. It is living without lies. The master appeared from the shadows, calm as dawn itself. He placed a hand on the man's shoulder. Then your training is complete, for now. Remember, the discipline that is born from ego dies with ego, but the discipline born from love endures forever. The man bowed deeply. His movements no longer held tension, only grace. He had learned that every act of discipline was an act of devotion, every act of devotion, an act of freedom. And so he walked into the rising sun, no longer chasing strength, but carrying it silently like a hidden flame. Yet even in this peace, the greatest enemy waited, the one disguised as enlightenment itself, the shadow of pride, the edge of ego. Chapter 5. The edge of ego. The man now moved through the world like water through stone, smooth, deliberate, unshakable. Each action was precise, each breath intentional. Even silence bowed before him. The master had withdrawn. Weeks passed without instruction, without presence. The man continued his rituals, breathwork, kata, meditation, and found comfort in their perfection. But one evening, while gazing into the reflection of his own face in a bowl of still water, a thought crossed his mind. Quiet, poisonous. I have mastered myself. It was subtle, almost innocent. Yet, the moment it appeared, the reflection rippled, as if even the water refused to agree. He felt a strange tightness in his chest. For the first time in months, he desired something again. Not food, not rest, but recognition. He wanted someone to see how far he had come. When the master finally returned, the man greeted him with a deep bow. But beneath the humility, pride flickered like fire behind his eyes. I have walked the ruthless path, he said. I no longer fear weakness. The master's gaze was steady, unreadable. You believe you are free. The man nodded. The master smiled faintly, not with warmth, but with knowing. Then we shall see. He said nothing more. For the next 3 days, he remained silent, offering no teaching, no acknowledgement. The man continued his training, but doubt began to bloom like mold on stone. Was he doing it wrong? Why had the master stopped guiding him? By the 5th day, irritation crept in. He performed his morning rituals faster, sharper, his movements losing the calm precision they once carried. When he looked at the master, who sat unmoving under a cedar tree, he saw not a teacher, but a challenge. "Why do you ignore me?" the man demanded one evening. "Have I not earned your words?" The master's eyes opened slowly. His voice was soft, almost tender. "If you require my praise, then your training has failed." The man's heart flared with anger. "I've given everything," he shouted. "My comfort, my fear, my life." The master stood, calm as a mountain under storm. "Then give me what remains, the one thing you still cling to." The man froze. "What remains?" The master pointed to his chest. "The self that needs to be seen." Those words cut deeper than any blade. The man turned away, but the truth followed him like a shadow. He trained that night in fury, pushing beyond exhaustion, punishing his body in hopes of silencing the voice within. But every strike, every breath echoed with the same haunting question: "Who are you without the need to prove?" By dawn, his body collapsed. The master found him lying in the dirt, gasping, drenched in sweat. "You fight ghosts," said the master quietly. "The enemy you face now cannot be defeated by strength." The man closed his eyes, pain and shame twisting together. "Then how?" The master crouched beside him, his tone barely above a whisper. "By surrender. When there is nothing left to prove, nothing left to protect, the self disappears, and what remains is truth." That night, broken and humbled, the man entered the deepest meditation of his life, a confrontation not with darkness, but with emptiness itself. Chapter 5. Part 2. Night fell like ink poured over the world. The dojo, once a sanctuary, now felt like a mirror, reflecting every hidden crack in his spirit. He sat cross-legged on the wooden floor, spine straight, breath steady, eyes closed, but inside, chaos brewed. Not the chaos of distraction that had long been conquered, but the chaos of identity. Who am I without struggle? Who am I if there's nothing left to prove? His mind echoed these questions until they dissolved into the void. He searched for the master's voice, for the familiar guidance, but none came. There was only silence. Hours passed. The boundaries between body and thought began to blur. His heartbeat slowed. His breath became faint. And in that stillness, something ancient stirred. He saw himself, not the man who had trained for months, not the disciplined warrior, but the boy who once feared failure, the son who longed to be seen. The image stood before him, trembling, holding out empty hands. "I only wanted to be enough," the boy whispered. The man's chest tightened. For all his strength, that simple truth pierced deeper than any blade. He knelt before his younger self and whispered, "You were always enough. You just forgot." As the words left his lips, the image dissolved, not into darkness, but into light. The man felt tears slide down his face, not of weakness, but of release. For the first time, he was not fighting, he was allowing. He saw how his pursuit of mastery had slowly turned into another prison, a golden cage built from achievement, discipline, and pride. He had merely replaced chaos with control, fear with superiority. The ego had returned, refined, disguised, enlightened, and so he bowed, not to the master, not to the gods, but to the emptiness itself. "I see you," he whispered, "and I surrender." The air seemed to thicken, as if the universe itself exhaled. In that moment, he felt his identity dissolve like salt in water. There was no I, no he, No warrior, only awareness, vast, infinite, silent. When he opened his eyes, dawn had come. The first rays of light cut through the open doorway, illuminating motes of dust floating in still air. The master stood at the edge of the dojo, silent as ever. The man rose, slow and calm. He bowed deeply, his forehead touching the floor. "I have nothing left," he said. The master nodded. "Then now, you are ready to receive everything." They stepped outside together. The valley stretched endlessly below, the same as always, yet utterly transformed. The man noticed the scent of pine, the warmth of sunlight, the distant hum of the river. He had seen these things 1,000 times before, yet it felt like the first. The master turned to him. "You understand now. Mastery is not domination, but disappearance. The one who must prove no longer exists." The man smiled faintly. "Then what remains?" "Presence," said the master, pure and simple. They stood in silence for a long while. The wind brushed through the cedar trees like a soft prayer. The man no longer sought to control it. He simply breathed with it. And so, when the time came, the man left the mountain, not to abandon the dojo, but to carry it within. The world awaited, the final test of stillness in motion. Chapter 6. The return from the inner dojo. He descended the mountain at dawn. The same path he had climbed years ago now felt different, wider, lighter, alive. Each stone seemed to greet him. Each gust of wind whispered a lesson once shouted. There were no drums, no ceremony, no farewell from the master. Only a silent nod and the weightless presence of unspoken understanding. The man walked barefoot down the dirt road. His robe was torn and faded, yet he carried himself with quiet majesty, not of pride, but of peace. At the edge of the forest, the hum of civilization returned. Distant car horns, the chatter of people, the mechanical rhythm of modern life. For a moment he paused. The noise that once drowned him now sounded like an orchestra. Chaotic, yes, but somehow harmonious. He smiled. The true test had begun. In the dojo, he had conquered his inner chaos. Now, he would learn to move through the outer one, to live as stillness in motion. As he walked through the city, eyes turned toward him without knowing why. There was nothing extraordinary about his appearance, yet people sensed something. A gravity, a calm. In a cafe, two men argued over money. The man sat nearby, drinking tea. He said nothing, but his silence was heavier than their anger. Within moments, their voices lowered. They looked around, confused, as if peace had entered the room without permission. Later, at a crowded station, a woman dropped her groceries. Without hesitation, he bent down to help. She thanked him. He smiled. "The hand that lifts another," he said softly, "is the same hand that strengthens itself." She didn't understand his words fully, but something in his tone stilled her thoughts. In the dojo, the lessons were internal: breath, patience, awareness. Here, in the world, they became invisible acts: kindness, presence, restraint. He found himself watching people as he once watched his thoughts, not judging, only observing. He saw the tension in their shoulders, the restlessness in their eyes, the endless hunger for validation. He understood it because he had lived it. Everywhere he looked, he saw reflections of his former self. The man scrolling endlessly, escaping silence. The woman rushing to meet expectations that no longer mattered. The youth chasing strength but fearing stillness. He wanted to speak to them, to tell them that peace is not found in achievement, but in alignment. That the battle is never with the world, only with the mirror. But he didn't. He simply walked, carrying the silence within him like a lamp that needed no flame. That night, He returned to his small apartment. The walls were still bare. The bed, the same. The hum of the city pressed through the window. He sat in the center of the room, crossed his legs, and breathed. Nothing had changed, yet everything had. He could feel the pulse of life around him. The electricity, the noise, the movement. Yet none of it disturbed the stillness at his core. It was as if the dojo had followed him home, built now, not from wood and silence, but from awareness itself. He realized that enlightenment was not escape, it was integration. But as days turned to weeks, a new understanding began to unfold, that the dojo was never meant to end. Life itself was the training ground, and the practice eternal. Chapter 6, Part 2. Weeks passed. The rhythm of the world pressed forward, faster, louder, more distracted than ever. Yet the man moved through it, like wind through reeds, untouched, but deeply present. He worked again, not as a monk or teacher, but as an ordinary man among ordinary people. He repaired small tools in a workshop, swept floors, brewed tea. Every task, no matter how mundane, was done with the precision of a kata. Colleagues noticed something strange. He never hurried, never complained, never seemed tense, yet he accomplished more than anyone else. When one of them asked how, he simply replied, "When you are truly here, time serves you. When you are not, you serve time." They didn't fully grasp his words, but they felt something, a calm that made them slow down, breathe deeper, think clearer. Without preaching, he became a mirror. People began to adjust themselves in his reflection. At lunch breaks, he sat outside beneath a tree, eyes half closed. He listened, not just to sounds, but to silence between them. He found it everywhere now, in laughter, in footsteps, in the hum of electricity. Silence had followed him from the mountain, hiding within the noise. He realized the master had never truly left him. The master lived within every moment of awareness. Every breath was instruction, every challenge a lesson, every failure a reminder. One evening, he walked by a river at dusk. The city lights shimmered on the water's surface, breaking into golden fragments. He saw his reflection again, older, calm, weathered, and he whispered, "The dojo is here." He remembered the first night he entered solitude, trembling, lost, desperate to escape distraction. He thought of the endless days of stillness, the pain, the hunger, the confrontation with his own shadows. And now, it all made sense. Discipline was not something to practice. It was something to become. Presence was not a technique. It was the natural state beneath all noise. Silence was not absence. It was the voice of truth, always speaking beneath thought. He smiled. He no longer felt like a student, nor did he feel like a master. He felt whole. A young man walking by stopped and asked, "Excuse me, sir, are you a monk or something?" The man chuckled. "No, I'm just someone who learned how to listen." To what? He looked at the river, at the shimmering light. To what never stops speaking, even when you stop listening. The boy nodded uncertainly and walked away, yet carried the words with him long after. As the night deepened, the man sat by the water and closed his eyes once more. He breathed in, breathed out, the same rhythm that had carried him through the years. In the stillness, he heard the master's final teaching, not as a voice, but as understanding. When the inner dojo is built within, the world itself becomes your training ground. When every breath is taken in awareness, even chaos bows before you. He opened his eyes and smiled. The city lights shimmered like stars fallen to earth. He rose, bowed to the horizon, and walked on. each step silent, each motion sacred. Epilogue. The core moral. The greatest warrior is not the one who conquers others, but the one who conquers himself, in silence, every day. There comes a time when every warrior must leave the mountain, not to seek peace, but to carry it. When silence becomes your companion, discipline your language, and presence your armor, you no longer fight the world. You move with it. Remember this: strength is not built in noise, but in the quiet moments when no one is watching. The Inner Dojo is not a place, it's a way of being. Every breath, every choice, every moment. So if this story spoke to the warrior within you, the path still searching for stillness in the storm, then join the path. Like this video to honor your own discipline. Comment below what silence has taught you, and subscribe, not for entertainment, but for remembrance. Because every dawn, the dojo awaits, and the journey within never ends.